It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Titans have officially signed their first-round pick. Field Yates reported this morning. Wide receiver Traylon Burks inked his 4-year deal worth over $14 million, fully guaranteed, with a 5th-year option. Tennessee football will kick off the 2023 season with a different opponent. It was announced on Monday. The Vols will take on Virginia in Nissan Stadium to kick things off in 2023. The matchup replaces Tennessee's originally scheduled trip to Provo to take on BYU. Tennessee basketball grabbed another commitment today from 6'8" power forward Toby Awaka out of New York. Awaka is unranked on the 247 Sports Composite. The Vols are a week removed from securing a commit from 5-star small forward Julian Phillips. Major League Baseball, the Braves dropped the first of a 3-game set against the Brewers on Tuesday in a shutout, 1-0, going again tonight at 6:20. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Let's get it going, shall we? Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. We got Lucas Panzica. We got Robert Walsh keeping the show on the rails soon, and very soon. Ramon Foster, fresh off of the fastest 4 hours in radio, will be here with us. Been a while since we chopped it up with the big fella, so we're looking forward to having him as a part of the nonsense today. You can be a part of this nonsense if you want. 615-737-1045. That's the number. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. So, got some Titans rookie minicamp stuff to get into. Got some observations from this weekend on Malik Willis that I have yet to share with you all. Looking forward to doing that later on in the show. But I want to start with the news that you heard as a part of Lucas's update that the Vols have made a change to their 2023 football schedule and will now have a new season opening opponent and venue. So instead of BYU in Provo, you're going to get basically another Tennessee home game against Virginia at Nissan Stadium. Now, I don't know if looking this far ahead on schedule stuff is something that intrigues you. I know that there's a couple of intriguing things about this game to me in particular. But I think the biggest question is, why has there been any reporting, I guess, on why they're doing this? Because I'm looking at the article written by Patrick Brown on Go Vols 247 this morning. And what was brought up by Danny White was pivoting to play, Danny White, by the way, the athletic director, for those of you who do not know, pivoting to play a marquee non-conference opponent in Nashville made sense for multiple reasons. This is a more accessible game for our fan base. I expect that we will have a much larger contingent of fans in Nashville than would have been able to travel to Utah. Our fans have also heard me talk about the importance of finding new revenue to grow our operating budget, and playing Virginia at Nissan Stadium is an opportunity for a net positive revenue game. So, this was pretty last minute. I mean, I understand that there's still a full football season to go between now and the 2023 season opener, but if you're going to play a Tennessee-Virginia game, I'm surprised they didn't try to do it at Bristol. Now, I don't know the details of why or why not it didn't happen at Bristol as opposed to Nissan Stadium. And immediately, Titans fans filled my mentions with, how dare the University of Tennessee play a football game at Nissan Stadium before the Titans have the opportunity to play a game at Nissan Stadium, because we all know what a bleep show the field looked like after the Music City Bowl last year. What are you making a face about? What happened?
It's a common thing. It's not like this is the first time this has happened.
No, but this is the cycle.
I don't know how many games Tennessee has played on that field.
This is the life cycle of the sports fan, right? How does it affect me and my team first and foremost? So there are Titans fans who are Vols fans. There are Vols fans who are Titans fans. But just everybody wants something to bitch about with all these things. Now, apparently there was another reason for the change itself, because what Danny White lays out there in that statement in a press release all seems like it's coming up Tennessee. Lucas, what other details can you provide for us on this particular story? Because I am interested as to why it's happening right now.
Well, it's a win-win for both schools. For BYU, they've been looking to shed these non-conference games because BYU will be a Big 12 school in 2023. They will no longer be independent. There will be this influx of conference matchups, and BYU is already slated, I believe, to play Arkansas in 2023. So they're not going to have multiple SEC games on a regular season schedule.
Cowards.
In their first season in the Big 12.
Cowardice is what we can surmise.
This was the second part of the home and home between Tennessee and BYU, in which the first at Neyland Stadium was a BYU win with Zach Wilson at quarterback when Tennessee had the game won in the dying moments, and Zach Wilson found a receiver for a 70-yard play in the final seconds.
What a terrible game.
Taylor made the mistake and it won in overtime.
Wait, was that week 2? Was that after Georgia State?
That was, yes.
Woo!
No, was it? It was week 2 or 3.
It was really, really soon after the Georgia State, because I remember. Right after Georgia State. I think it was week 2 of that season.
I think you're right.
I remember sitting in a hotel room in Cleveland, Ohio, getting ready for the Titans season opener at the Browns that year, watching that BYU game in disbelief, because they had been in control. I just had it on in the background. Yeah, I'm watching, but that was before I had the talk show, so I didn't really have to, all the ins and outs of what happened in the Vols game that weekend. And all of a sudden, I look up and, oh, my God.
All they had to do.
Again, they did this?
With 30 seconds left in BYU with no timeouts. And all they had to do was not give up a play of 70 yards to put them in field goal range. That's exactly what happened.
That sure as hell put Zach Wilson's highlight reel together as he got ready for the pros in the coming season. So what 247 reports is that there was a $2 million penalty for either Tennessee or BYU not fulfilling one of the 2 scheduled games agreed to back in 2017, which, of course, is always forgotten in all of this, that these games are agreed to 5 and 6 years before they actually take place. So you have no idea what level of competition it's going to look like by the time these games actually roll around. The original game contract between the 2 schools included a clause addressing the Cougars' potential move from independent status to a Power 5 conference, which is the details that Lucas just laid out there. We have people immediately, Tomahawk Chop, who's YouTube. What are you giggling about?
I just love it. Go ahead. What do you say?
Oh, it just says it's just a small grenade rolled into the YouTube chat. Simply, BYU is a better program than Tennessee. That's what he leaves us with this morning.
Hey, on brand, very on brand from Tomahawk.
I don't
consistent,
disagree with him. I don't disagree with him. In the last 5 years.
In the last 5 years, BYU has unquestionably had more success than Tennessee.
Yeah, beat the hell out of UT the last time they played. No, they didn't beat the hell out of them. It was just an utter choke job by Jeremy Pruitt. Not beat the hell out of them. Just utter nonsense. Anyway. So that will be something to pay attention to. We can talk about this with Ramon Foster a little bit. But other than that, there's a really interesting story taking place in the NFL that Ramon Foster will have unique insight on, and we'll get to that momentarily. The idea of playing Vols games in Nashville, right? That's the only Tennessee game that I've had the opportunity to go to because of what my travel schedule looks like in the fall. I did almost go with Lucas to Knoxville for the Ole Miss game. I deeply regret not going to Knoxville for the Ole Miss game because of the drama that unfolded. But honestly, I think I got the better of that just because from a commentator standpoint, it was way better on television than I imagine it would have been had I been in Neyland Stadium itself, especially given the fact that you left early. You left before the mustard bottles and the golf balls started flying.
No, I left after the mustard bottles and golf balls started flying.
Okay, so you said, I'm not going to sit through 30 minutes of this nonsense. I'm just going to get the hell out of here?
Yeah, about 15 to 20 minutes in the delay, I said, okay, I'm leaving. And we watched Joe Milton run out of bounds with zeros on the clock surrounding somebody's phone outside of Hodges Library on campus. 20 people around an iPhone.
Joe Milton, the play that will live in infamy for the rest of his career. Put it on the poll at Buck Reising, where we update the polls at the end of every show, presented by Two Rivers Ford. Which is the worst sports fan, or the worst sports fan? Guy or gal who leaves early before the sporting event is concluded, or the person who DVRs the sporting event and watches it after the fact, knowing already the result. That's a little lengthy to put in the poll options on Twitter, but I believe they're basically the same kind of person. Somebody who leaves early from a sporting event, and somebody who, armed with the knowledge of the results, who knows what happened in the game, still goes back and watches the game after the fact, unless you do this for a living, because otherwise I don't understand people like that.
I never leave games early, but in my defense, I had been at Neyland Stadium for about 4.5 hours when mustard bottles started flying.
You cannot say I never leave games early when we're talking about the last game that you left early for. Like, that's you can't do it that way.
I never leave games early.
Yeah, almost never.
There are exceptions to every rule.
I will, full disclosure, if I am somebody who is in attendance at a sporting event, I actively seek to leave early. In fact, for the home opener, it's Yotis Park for Nashville SC. I'm going to be there. I'm not going tomorrow, but I'll be there on Saturday. By the way, I need a tailgate to go to for Nashville SC fans who are going to be out there. We didn't tailgate last time because you were working. I got there, I don't know, it was just me and John Glennon wandering around or wandering as far around the building as we could, taking pictures because it was the first time that we were out there. So I need a Nashville SC tailgate to go to. But the idea of Tennessee playing games in Nashville is always a bit of a novelty. Obviously, Vols have tremendous support here. The last Tennessee game that was played at Nissan Stadium ended in also great controversy with the way the officiating did literally alter the results in front of us, despite Tennessee's secondary giving up 500 yards of passing offense. But we don't need to spend too much time on that.
Will also be a cool homecoming of sorts for my buddy John Freeman, the voice of the Virginia Cavaliers, who was the voice of Nashville Soccer Club for the last few years.
Very nice. Well, I hope that he will enjoy that, and certainly I'm sure the Zone will have a strong contingent out there to cover that game in 2023. Who starts at quarterback? I don't know. Nico Iamaleava? Or who's the kid from Indianapolis that was a part of this year's recruiting class? Taven Jackson.
His brother plays for your basketball team.
I know, but his brother is the name that I know, the quarterback at Tennessee who comes from Indianapolis. Still learning. Now, Nico was somebody who I had the opportunity to watch on Sunday. I told you guys I went out to Elite 11. We had Trent Dilfer on the radio show yesterday, and some observations that I made about Nico Iamaleava, who is, of course, the 5-star quarterback commit for the University of Tennessee in this now star-studded 2023 recruiting class. Here's Trent Dilfer's thoughts after working with Nico at the Elite 11 Regional on Sunday.
Fiercely competitive, still in the earn it phase. He's not entitled. We've run into this over 12 years. A lot of guys are celebrated so much, and they get these stars, and they get these big offers, and now with NIL, they get a bunch of money that a lot of them succumb to entitlement and think that they've arrived. And the ones we're really looking for are the ones that are in the earn it phase. And Nico's still in the earn it phase. He still knows he's got a lot of things to improve upon. He knows it's a big job being a quarterback in the SEC. He knows he's going to a program that's just pouring gasoline on their development. I mean, Hype and UT's done such a good job of kind of taking themselves out of the dust bowl and putting them as a national recognized program again. So he knows the gravity of the job. I think those are all things that we knew about him because we know about him from Southern California. Remember, most of us are California guys by nature. So we kind of grew up out there and cut our teeth in California football. So we've known about Nico a long time. But for Middle Tennessee in general, people that want to know about Nico, he is way more than the flash and sizzle. There's a lot of substance there.
And that's what my observations of him on Sunday were. Now, listen, it's not, I'm not watching I haven't seen a ton of his high school football games. I know, obviously, the caliber of talent that he is. And I spent about 4.5 hours on my Sunday watching him go through quarterback combine drills, basically. Was hugely impressed with not only the way that he performed, but the way that he reacted and handled people around him, who, obviously, he was the highest profile prospect out there on the field, and it's tough to have for a high school kid, a rising senior, to have that much maturity that's clear and obvious to everybody, but it was something that he clearly, values and something that he clearly brings to a team aesthetic. So that will be interesting to watch develop over the course of the next year, and once he finally lands in Knoxville, provided that he stay committed. Ramon Foster of J-Mart and Ramon is going to be in studio. We haven't had Ramon on the show in a while, and we're looking forward to doing that coming up next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Okay, so we haven't had the big fella in the studio in quite some time. That's because, we feel bad after he's done 4 hours of radio, asking him for much more. But he is Ramon Foster, 6 to 10 a.m. on these very airwaves, and he's in here with us now. Hi, buddy.
What's going on, Buck?
Not a lot.
I was telling Ron, I was like, yeah, I'm going on Bucks after this. I was like, I almost want to tell him he need to have me on more. But you know what, Buck? You're right. It's cool. I'll do this in doses if that's what you prefer, man.
It's not what I prefer, buddy. It's that it is ungodly, the hours that you wake up to do this. You do an hour more of this than I do consecutively.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want to infringe upon your good nature, even as I enjoy chopping it up with you, because, I think it makes it even better when we do have the opportunity.
You know what? I'll take that, Buck. I'm with it. See, you deliver the message, and I'm good to go with that. You made me feel all warm and fuzzy now. Here we go. Here we go, Buck.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I have that effect on people a lot, I hear. Warm.
The cats.
Thank you, Caleb Farley. I do, too. Cats, get the hell out of here. Damn thing's taking over my house. Speaking of warm and fuzzies, how about a reunion between your boy, Antonio Brown, and the Pittsburgh Steelers? He has proclaimed on social media that he just wants to retire a Steeler. I know that you talked about this yesterday, or rather this morning. But, I mean, when you see something like that, knowing this person on a much deeper level than any of us could possibly, what the hell goes through your mind?
First thing first, after that one, reality. It's kind of kicked in a little bit. Could AB still do it? Yes. Could he be somebody's 2 or 3 at some point playing a role? Yes, he could. But I think the path he's kind of moved into is being not just a sports entertainer, but just an entertainer. I think he wants to call himself an icon. I heard him do Ryan Clark's The Pivot, and that's kind of what he said. He's moving into a phase of rap, entertainment, socialites, and stuff like that. I think now the football side of what he's got going on has pretty much caught up to him, and reality has smacked him in the face. Of one, nobody probably wants it, but 2, I've always heard people say this too when guys walk away from a program and trash it. You don't really want to do that because everybody that plays the sport, plays the game, but they want a home. You want somewhere where you can go back, walk on the field, waving a towel, hitting a drum, being introduced as your Tennessee Titan, your Pittsburgh Steeler, your Carolina Panther. You want your kids to see that. You want your kids to know that, look, this is where idea work is. And I think that's a little bit of what AB got going on right now. To his defense, I don't blame him for that. If you're going to stick with any organization, it's got to be the one in Pittsburgh.
Right.
I mean, he's even admitted. They asked Ron Clark asked him a hard question. Well, who was your favorite? He didn't want to directly say it because egos. You know how that go. But he was like, who'd I get the most yards with?
Yeah.
Who's your best guy? Like, Tom kind of brought him in and made him more acceptable to everybody else after he left friggin' Vegas. But he told him, Ben is the one I had the best honeymoon with. Like, that's who I laid with. It was Ben Roethlisberger. So why would he not? And you can't deny this. For about 6 years, it was AB and others for the most part.
Oh, yeah. No, the triple B's thing.
Oh, my.
I mean, that was a fun era of Steelers football for anybody, no matter how you feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers as an organization. I know Titans fans have strong feelings going back to the AFC Central and things like that. But, I mean, he was and is one of the best players that I have seen in my generation of watching football, and especially the story of this guy where, you're growing up in the streets of Miami, homeless at the age of like 16, which for those of you who don't know where Antonio Brown comes from and you look to understand the behavior of Antonio Brown rather than, I understand that sometimes it is easy to point and to laugh at the silly, the silliness and the, stripping off a T-shirt in the New York Jets Stadium and waving it around your head as you skip through the end zone. Like, people like that have some deep, dark stuff to them that drives them to the place where they ultimately get. Now, to your point about athletes wanting not necessarily to have a home, but to have a place where you are remembered and you are remembered fondly, and to have those continual good vibes after you're gone or when you come back to, as you said, for your kids, for your legacy.
Right.
Basically. Is that something that you have seen people lose sight of in real time across your playing career? Because it makes all the sense in the world, and I think it is easy for people on the outside like me to, lose sight of that as far as players are concerned.
They do a little bit, because nowadays with social media, you are Buck Reising LLC. You are the university of yourself, and guys kind of have taken that upon themselves to say, "I'm gonna do what I want to." We're seeing trickle down all the way down to the college level, in a sense. Like I hit the portal and just dip. Well, or in baseball now, I've been hearing more people say it's probably more productive to go to college, because if you go to JUCO, nobody really goes back to a JUCO school and say, "Hey, this is where I played." But if you go to a four-year university, you have a home. Have guys kind of lost that? I think social media has kind of pushed that forward to where it's not as important, to where the fans believe and love the team, but the players don't. I think some players still do fall into that bubble of, well, if I can find the right spot, I'll forever be remembered here, i.e. Matthew Stafford. Look where he spent all his time in Detroit.
Yeah.
But if you ask him where is he most happiest, that's the obvious answer. He's going to tell you the place I won the Super Bowl at. He's freaking bought 4 houses or whatever it is in the LA area, because why? This is a place where he can settle, where he's actually put a banner up into the rafters and say, "I'm now an LA Ram." And I think that's one of the coolest part of what his story is. With AB's situation, man, the entire breakup of it all was ego. It was powers versus powers.
God, that was fun to watch.
Let me be real. It was some times, especially week 17 of the 2019 season. 2019 or 2018, whichever one it was, and just watching practice unfold, Buck. After the New Orleans Saints throw that should have been a penalty, AB, I think, had 240 yards receiving or something like that. Had a monstrous day. And then the next week, we're on the verge of playoffs. And we get to practice, Buck, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like that quiet whisper as the legendary Coach Matt walks into the studio.
Struts in, sunglasses on, living his best life.
We talk about players having a home.
Magic. Yeah.
Coach Matt got a home everywhere he places his feet.
That's right. Well, listen, this is a man of the people. I'm getting ready to watch him hold court tomorrow at the Titans Foundation dinner. I don't know if Mac knows what the hell he's doing yet.
Can I say something here?
Well, you can say it on a microphone, Mac, because otherwise people can't hear you.
First of all, I apologize for interrupting, but I really don't.
Hello, Mac.
I'm meeting Coach Matthews up here. We got important stuff to go do.
Hell yeah.
But I saw y'all in here. I want to come see you. I will see you tomorrow night. But seriously, I don't care about seeing you. I want to see Dara, and that's it. I mean, really, seriously. So don't feel threatened, and don't worry about a thing.
Threatened, Mac. I don't exist when you're around. I
can't. This is going to be a great event, though, in all seriousness. It's going to be an awesome event, and I'm looking forward to it. But I listened to you guys coming in here. I said, I'm going to go in there and just crash the party.
Why not? Listen, Mac, you have an open invitation. This man, you're right. He makes his feet makes his home where his feet are at.
Not even his head, Buck. Like it doesn't matter where he lays his head. It's where his feet are.
I heard you on today with Coach Fulmer. Very good.
I appreciate it.
It was excellent.
I do some professional stuff every once.
You are professional. No, I got
nothing about this is professional.
No, I got
nothing about this.
I got much respect. I got much respect for both of you.
Well,
what you're doing. All right, I'm going to leave now.
All right,
Lucas, how we doing back there? Good.
Doing great, Coach.
Can't hear you, Lucas. I can see you through the glass. I can read lips.
Give him a thumbs up.
I can read the thumbs up.
Go ahead, Mac.
See you guys.
the man, the legend.
Mac attack, man.
I will see that man in full Coach Mac regalia at the Titans Foundation dinner tomorrow. What the hell were we talking about?
Yeah, but we were talking about the 2019 end of that year, man. But when we saw it break up, I got a real understanding, like I said, and I kind of preached this a little bit to Titans fans before AJ really took off. I was like, when you get into an era of having superstars, I said it changes, Buck.
Yeah.
The dynamic of your team does. The power struggle changes a little bit. The coaching has to change a little bit for those type of players. And what do we see this offseason during the draft? A player who's becoming a star/superstar made a move for himself that I don't know if this organization has seen happen like this.
No.
Because of, I don't want to call it ego with AJ because I don't know him.
I know AJ better than you do just because of working around him for the past 3 years. And yeah, I'm completely comfortable saying it was an ego thing.
And that's what
that's fine, by the way.
And that's cool because he got what he wanted and the Titans got something back in return too. But when you face guys like that, like AJ's gonna have to, really find a real happy medium in that move. One, he's got to ball out in Philly.
Yeah.
That's number one. And two, if he doesn't, let's just hope that this wash around in which Antonio Brown is doing right now by trying to say, I want to retire a Steeler, is something that AJ doesn't have to do respectfully.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Ramon Foster, J. Martin Ramon, 6 to 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone is where you can find the big fella, Jason and Schaefer, making it happen. They had a great interview with Coach Phil Fulmer today. Go check out the podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts. That's been my biggest contention about the AJ situation. He's not going to be remembered as a Titan. He wasn't here long enough. But to your point, Philly fans may end up loving him the way that Titans fans did. He has to perform. If AJ has the career, say he has, let's say it's a 4-year deal, right? So say he has 3 years in Philadelphia, the way that he had 3 years in Nashville and performed with a similar result. Injuries is a part of that. You miss games here and there. You play through it. You have exceptional star power, but ultimately you leave people wanting a little more.
Yeah.
He is never going to recreate what he had here in any other spot. Because nobody is as thirsty for a star wide receiver as this fan base was, and they had him.
I don't know if you heard the call yesterday, and we were speaking about it as far as AJ goes, and I think it was Terry. I don't know where it was, but he went on a little bit of a tangent rant, a little bit about they could have, they should have, they had the money and all. I was just like, you hear it, to your point. That longing, that desire to have a superstar, Buck.
You're telling on yourself.
I know this. I know they got Harold. I know they got Bud. I know they got Jeff. I know they got Ryan. I know they got Derrick. But the one that you plaster across all boards that has a personality was AJ.
On every NFL Network commercial, every, NFL Red Zone highlight, it's the wide receiver catching the touchdown pass and dragging 4 Ravens into the end zone with him.
Yes, it's him. And I understand it. Because being around those guys, like AB, Martavis, friggin' Le'Veon,
Bryant, man, I forgot about him.
You know what I'm saying? Like all these guys that had these names. Like Pittsburgh is probably about the same market as what Tennessee is as far as the size. But of course, when you look at the history of it and everything else that surrounds it, you're like, well, Pittsburgh's been doing this a little bit longer. And I think AJ was a part of that start of hope that this city, this organization, okay, we can build off of what AJ got. You love the idea of trailing with AJ. Yeah. That was always the conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I'm hoping at some point that kid balls. Okay, I'm really hoping
for his sake. He has to. For his
sake, yeah, and because he's a first rounder. I mean, heavy as the head that wears a first round. You see, I like that right there. Okay. With that being said,
how many times you practice that in front of the mirror?
I was actually off the top of the dome right there, Paul. I was good.
A round of applause for Ramon Foster, please. Can we?
Thank you, Lucas. I appreciate it.
No,
because if you know me, though, I always put a whole lot of pressure on first rounders. One, they're given the opportunity.
Sure.
You're one of 32 in the entire world that's actually doing what you're doing in the first round of the NFL. And for those guys, the chances and opportunity that they get, if they don't capitalize, I have zero remorse for them. But so for his sake, like you said, he's got to go ball out.
I think because you bring up the Steelers and the way that they had to handle that circumstance with AJ and with Martavis Bryant, and they capitulated is probably the wrong word for it, but even a franchise with the history and the accomplishments of the Pittsburgh Steelers coalesced to the stars, coalesced to the players because they understood that they needed him.
Yep.
That's not something that happened here. This is a really interesting dynamic as I watch John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, and I've gotten to know them over the course of 6 years with, or I guess now 7 years with John and 5 years going into 5 years with Mike. they do not seem in the way that the Packers are, bending the knee, basically, understanding that that's a different situation. Tampa has basically forsaken everything and say, yeah, Tom, do what you like. Sign your 10-year Fox deal now and just play quarterback for us as long as you want to, because we've never mattered in this kind of way. Please, Mr. Brady, stay as long as you can.
Oh, my gosh.
This team is not doing that. It has not done that historically. And in this age where we are seeing, players taking control of their own circumstance, rightly or wrongly, in ways that really LeBron James taught everybody how to do this, and now you're kind of seeing people fumble around with it on their own. Are the Titans at a disadvantage because they do seem a degree inflexible on things like that?
I'll say this. That's a great freaking point. And even to that point, Boston jump-started it with the big three also. And LeBron, like you said, put it on steroids. Well, how he went about it.
Yeah.
I can sympathize with the fans here. Because when you have those type of guys and you know they're going to do certain things for you, you want to see them be around and be familiar. Are the Titans behind on it? This is a great question for the listeners and callers too, is to say this. Are you willing to see your Tennessee Titans bend the knee, air quotes, when it comes to keeping guys around and keeping that stability, those cog in the wheel type of guys that say, we're going to build off of this. We're going to continue to push it forward. If you need this, $22 million, $25 million. We'll find a way to make it happen. The other part of it, though, is Buck, is do you want the Saints at the end of the day as far as being strapped against the cap and you're without a quarterback? I'd almost say we always made room to sign AB.
Yep.
Ben, guys that Ben wanted his offensive line, me, Marquise. Like, there was always ways to make the cap work. And AJ's situation, unless they know something a little bit more than we do, and maybe they do, Buck, as far as AJ and health that's always been brought up, or production, availability.
And, when it's out there, just the mental stability part of it is something that you cannot have the discussion without. And I hate that because I think it muddles things for people who are going to run with a narrative that may or may not exist. But once you put that out into the ecosystem, that is something that has to be factored into the, the discussion.
I just want to know where the conversation started and ended and who actually had the last word when it came to AJ.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
It's my understanding that AJ had the last word when it came to AJ, and that last word was not given to the Titans. It was cut off as far as communication was concerned about 3 weeks prior.
Was it that far ahead?
Mm-hmm.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know he'll never be known as a Titan for life. If that's the case, he's going to have to go through the wash, Buck.
Oh, he's going to go through something in Philadelphia. Now, I hold in front of me, before we allow Ramon Foster to get out of here and get on with his afternoon, I hold in front of me an award. I don't know if you're familiar with the ongoing feud that I have with 3HL regarding that terrible participation trophy that they've stuck next to you.
I'm beefing with them, too, because of this also.
Excellent. I want you to, now, I'm not going to tell people what I'm going to do with this yet. I'm going to hand this across the console to Ramon Foster. I want you to read what that says on the award. Now, this is just going to be the only tease. We're not going to tell you what we're doing with this yet. Ramon Foster, what does that award say?
It says Hospitality Supervisor Award.
From?
Captain D's
Seafood. Captain D's Seafood. Now, we won't read the name because this may be a person who actually still exists. Yeah. But I have plans for this particular trophy since we're having a trophy case here at 104.5 The Zone.
I got one from the 8th grade. I can't wait for my very first trophy, Buck. If they can bring in a second place trophy.
That's right.
I'm bringing in my 8th grade trophy, Buck.
We are going to decorate. It's not the wall of fame. It's the wall of mediocrity. That is going to be a part of this.
Can I place this up here?
You may. I'm not done with that yet. I have a bit that we're going to play out because Ron Slay's on the radio show tomorrow as well. I was on 3HL yesterday, and nobody brought the smoke to me. So you know what? I got some smoke.
You know where I stand. I'm Team Buck.
Ramon Foster, 6 to 10 a.m. J-Mart Ramon. Get the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Buddy, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And by the way, Babs is only 5'2".
Go to break. All right, welcome back. Always appreciate Ramon Foster and the great coach Dave McGinnis for stopping by. Mac will be on the show 11:20 on Friday, as is the custom. A lot of good stuff there from Ramon Foster. And, honestly, the show, because this conversation that we were having during the commercial break, the three of us, is continuing on out in the hallway. Very, very interesting stuff happening in the state of Tennessee around recruiting that as we get closer to football season and as the name, image, and likeness stuff starts to flesh out a little bit, I think you're going to really more people are going to start to learn just how big business this has gotten. But a conversation for another day. All of our interviews, by the way, presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com for every one of your HVAC needs. Winners and losers of the sports weekend. It is a Tuesday tradition. It is time. Lucas, open up the circus tent. All right. Who won, who lost? It's very simple. I can't dumb it down any more than I already have. And we're very dumb around here, so we need to keep it simple. There went the trapdoor. Who fell through it this week? That is the question. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved with winners and losers of the sports weekend. Allow me to begin with a winner. So, Phil Mickelson was in the news over the course of the last, 2 months since he's been basically ostracized from the rest of the golf and sports world for...
Excommunicated.
What was the word you just used?
Excommunicated.
Excommunicated? I
Yes.
believe the word is excommunicated. I think you added an extra syllable in there. Did you do that on purpose?
Let's find out.
It's definitely excommunicated. I think you combined exoskeleton and communicated in the middle of that word. But we're not known for our grammar around here.
Yep, no, it is excommunicated.
Thank you very much for all of your good work, as usual. So, winner of the sports weekend, Jack Nicklaus, who said the same Saudi Arabian organizers who offered Phil Mickelson more than $100 million to be the face of LIV Golf Invitational Series, which, of course, is taking place in the hugely problematic world or area of Saudi Arabia. Jack Nicklaus turned that money down. Now, Phil was fully prepared. Phil was full steam ahead with this whole project, even though Saudi Arabia has all manner of human rights violations around it, that there is, the killing of an American journalist in the middle of all of this that Phil Mickelson was very, very much prepared to ignore because, the golfers are getting a raw deal in the United States. And he feels that the Saudi money leveraged the PGA to make things better for the professional golfers. Winner of the sports weekend, Jack Nicklaus. Good on you, Jack.
For me, it's Grant Williams. 27 points, 7 of 18 from three-point land, leading the Boston Celtics to a Game 7 win over the weekend. Grant Williams, only the third player to make 7 three-pointers in a Game 7 in NBA history, joining the likes of Marcus Morris and the greatest three-point shooter to ever play the game, Steph Curry.
It's pretty good.
Grant Williams made 15 threes throughout the course of the entire season, his final year at Tennessee. He made 7 in one game on Sunday. Grant never shot better than 37% from three in a season at Tennessee, and that was his freshman year. His three-point percentage has gone from 25% to 37% to 41% this season with a massive increase in volume. That was one part of his game that had to be developed that he didn't really utilize a lot in college to be successful at the NBA level. Can you guess, Buck, how many three-pointers Grant Williams has attempted this season for the Boston Celtics?
Oh, my goodness. So remind me again, how many attempts in Game 7?
18, which I thought was a typo when I saw that.
I will say that Grant Williams has attempted 15 three-point shots throughout the course of this regular season.
258.
Oh.
Grant Williams is my winner of the weekend.
I think if I'm gonna screw up the number, I think I either have to go really, really low or really, really high.
Yes.
Which is the same way that you completely undermined me yesterday.
That's totally fair. Yes, he attempted 15 threes times 17 this season.
He said, loser of the sports weekend. Oh, goodness. How could it be anybody? This is the second time that they've made an appearance. The Cincinnati Reds. Did anybody else see this story? from Sunday. The Reds did not allow a hit against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but still managed to fall 1-0. It has become very quickly a lost season for the Cincinnati Reds. It is really the ultimate misery what they experienced on Sunday. Their prized rookie, Hunter Green, and Art Warren, one of the relievers, combined to allow 0 hits in a complete game, but it didn't count as a no-hitter. Not even a win. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they got a run in the bottom of the 8th inning on 3 walks and a ground out for a 1-0 victory on Sunday. Losers perpetually. They have won 9 games so far in this MLB regular season. The Cincinnati Reds, just an embarrassment of a franchise.
My loser of the weekend is Ravens cornerback Marlon Humphrey, who took to Twitter yesterday and said, quote, "How do you politely tell your girlfriend she is gaining some weight? Step 1, Marlon Humphrey, would be not tweeting it out to your 164.7 thousand followers on Twitter." Marlon Humphrey is my loser of the weekend.
It is so egregious. What could he has to be doing it like as a bit, right? He has to know what the reaction is going to be when he gets out there and says, "How do you tell your girl politely that she needs to lose a couple of pounds?" I can't imagine that being done in a serious way, actually asking for insight, because nobody is stupid enough to do that to their significant other, man, woman, or otherwise.
Some of the replies are diabolical. A man named Mike replied, said, "You ask her about that one outfit she used to wear and why she don't wear it anymore. She'll say it's old or played, but she'll know she just don't fit that bleep no more." And then he follows up by saying, "Also, park closer to cars on her side so she wonders why she has to keep making herself smaller to get in and out." What is wrong with people?
Shame on all of you. Shame on you. I respect my girlfriend way too much to ever do that.
She would kill you.
2, I fear her. I fear her greatly. I would never, ever, ever. Now, listen, I mean, if I'm 240 pounds, I don't even think Dara's 140 pounds. Honestly, or I'm not 240. I'm 234.6 as of this morning when I checked the scale, 220 by training camp. But still, never, ever, ever in my life would I ever even mention that. The only time I say anything to Dara about her weight is, "Oh my God, you look so thin today." Are you insane, Marlon Humphrey? Do you have a death wish? Do we need to put you on suicide watch? Because clearly you don't value your life. Clearly. Loser of the sports weekend. Oh my goodness. That man said, "Ask her why she doesn't wear that one outfit anymore."
So messed up.
Or park too close to another car.
Oh, yeah.
So she has to realize that is unthinkable. Hell, if you did that to me, I would kill you. I would straight up kill you. And clearly I'm more comfortable talking about my weight publicly than most people would, especially of the female persuasion, but just unremittingly stupid. That I may bring that back for the dumbest thing in sports this week tomorrow. Goodness, Marlon Humphrey. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on our conversation if you would like. What we did not talk about yesterday, coming off a weekend at rookie minicamp, was Malik Willis. You're going to hear from the Titans rookie quarterback, and I'll share with you some observations from 2 days watching him in his first couple of Titans practices. That's next.
It is 11:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Titans have officially signed their first-round draft pick. Field Yates reported this morning wide receiver Treylon Burks inked his 4-year deal worth over $14 million, fully guaranteed, of course, with a 5th-year option. Tennessee football will kick off the 2023 season with a different opponent. It was announced on Monday the Vols will take on the Virginia Cavaliers in Nissan Stadium to kick things off in 2023. That matchup replaces Tennessee's originally scheduled trip to Provo to take on BYU. Tennessee basketball grabbed another commitment today from 6'8" power forward Tobe Awaka out of New York. Awaka is unranked on the 247 Sports Composite. The Vols are about a week removed from securing a commit from 5-star small forward Julian Phillips. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, off and rolling hour number 2. Welcome in or welcome back. If you've been spending your time with us so far, we're happy to have you. 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in. 615-737-1045. We are continuing our ongoing feud with 3HL. I have brought in a well, that's not true. Robert. In all of his great content works, Robert Walsh has brought in a participation trophy. Now, I will take the heat for this because Robert is just trying to encourage my bad behavior, but we will explain to you what we're going to do with said participation trophy later on this hour. Got some stuff to share with you from Rookie Minicamp. Would love to hear your questions, your comments, your thoughts, your concerns about this new group of Titans players. Was out on the field the last couple of days. By the way, for those of you who are asking, they do have OTAs work taking place this week, but for the Vultures, like myself, we are not going to be able to attend another practice until a week from today. So that's the next time that you can get your Malik Willis, Kyle Phillips footwork kinks satisfied with social media videos that, have maybe some, but precious little bearing on how good or how bad these football players will be come the fall. But the thing that, attracted the most attention, I think indisputably, was Malik Willis. Now, Treylon Burks and his struggles, to put it politely, on Monday, or rather on Friday, that was a considerable talking point, and I told you yesterday, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, we'll talk about it when it's not fine. But last Friday is not something for you to lose your minds about. But Malik Willis is the thing that continues to come to the forefront because he's a quarterback. He's a rookie. And for a lot of people, the current quarterback has been under duress for some time. Now, looking at Malik Willis over the course of the last 2 days, it's not enough of a sample size for me to give you a legitimate evaluation on this. For example, I do the A to Z Sports Instagram questions. We do the Titans Q&A every Tuesday. And somebody asked me to grade his performance after 2 days of practice. And, the real answer is, of all the things that are going to be graded, rookie minicamp, 2 days of rookie minicamp is something that I very much would like to avoid drawing any major assessments from. I will say that it was up and down. I will say that there was some passes where there was some inaccuracies. There was some mechanical stuff that they were coaching him on that he seemed to pick up fairly quickly, and that it would be best described as, an up and down couple of days. Completely to be expected. Now, I asked Malik Willis on, would have been Friday, asked the rookie quarterback, what specifically they were having him work on from a skills standpoint. Because remember, Mike Vrabel values this time of year so much because of the skill work that they're able to get in. This was the Titans rookie quarterback last week.
I mean, footwork is key to a quarterback, so we're just working on the fundamentals of the position and just going through reads and whatnot and understanding what comes with that as far as that goes.
That's Malik Willis talking about his footwork and how big a part of the process that's going to be. Now, I had a follow-up for him around that about, in a little more detail, what kind of skills they were working with him on, and we'll have that for you here shortly. But as you look for signs of life, basically at the quarterback position, let me tell you how you should view, or how I think most of you should view, Malik Willis on this Titans roster. You're going to have your opinions. You're going to have your wants and your desires. You're going to get super impatient. Certainly, if Tannehill has a less than performance or even a bad one, and you're going to hold the mentor gate comments over his head, right, wrong, or indifferent, even though we've had multiple people with NFL playing experience come in here, including the Titans head coach, and tell you, yeah, that's how it goes. He just gave you an answer that was too honest for many of you to handle, and it's easy to run with because slow news week. Malik Willis is going to be an electric athlete. How he develops as a quarterback, I don't know. I think that as far as like the height of expectation, if I'm going to do completely unfair and unrealistic expectations today on May the 17th, I would say to you that the best possible scenario that you could hope for this young man is that he becomes a player who you can design specific packages for. That he becomes some version of what, for example, just in terms of recency, what Marcus Mariota was for the Raiders. A backup quarterback that you can put on the field in certain situations, that has the ability to threaten you both with his arm and with his legs, and find ways to take advantage of that. Find ways to keep the defense on their heels. Find ways to get critical yardage or, in the red zone, score points and maximize the ability of what he gives you right now. As far as what to expect from him as a quarterback, you know, Logan Woodside's the backup until he isn't. And while I think that may be hard for some people to process, understand that Logan Woodside, again, as we sit here on May the 16th, not to say that it won't change dramatically by the time that we get to even training camp, or hell, mini camp in the middle of June. Logan Woodside has the ability to do more at the quarterback position in the Tennessee Titans offense in the year of the Rona 2022 than Malik Willis does. That will at some point change. I don't know whether they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks on their active roster. I think that makes the math at a lot of other positions very complicated, especially when you can only get one of those guys on the field at any given point, and 2 if you're lucky, but that's just if you're trying to run some gimmicky stuff. Malik Willis will continue to be developed. And as we've said many, many times over, the best thing for Malik Willis is for Ryan Tannehill to play well enough to where that guy doesn't have to see the field. 615-737-1045. We'd be happy to take your reactions to that if you like. And if you have questions about what Malik Willis did or didn't do at rookie minicamp, I was out there both days. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. We're also going to get into some of the other rookies who made plays out there who caught my attention. One in particular on defense. I know we talked about Theo Jackson yesterday, but another one in particular on defense that I thought had a really, really strong weekend. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Yes, indeed. Very happy for our friends at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling who make our fine radio program possible, as well as all the interviews that we do. Cory Curtis, by the way, WKRN News 2, going to be in the house at 12:20. We got a lot of discussion to have about a Derrick Henry story that we missed last week. That I know. When was Mike Tenier on J. Martin Ramon, Lucas? Was that Monday?
I believe it was yesterday, yeah.
Okay. I have not had the opportunity to hear that interview myself, but I know that Mike wrote an article for Pro Football Focus about Derrick Henry's inevitable decline and how it's already begun and how Titans fans should prepare themselves for that. But there will be plenty of time to cover that ground. In the meantime, a quick correction. I had said that OTAs had begun this week. Forgive me. It's still phase 2 at this point. That was an error on my part. I misread the NFLPA phase of the offseason schedule. So still phase 2 work going on, and we've outlined what exactly that is that it looks like. But Malik Willis at this point is the thing that Titans fans are the most intrigued by. We've talked about the Treylon Burks stuff. I believe it to be a non-story. Most people wanted to, or many people wanted to make it into something that it was not. I think that something that we'll continue to monitor, but nothing to lose your mind about right now. And speaking of losing your mind about stuff, I thought it was funny. Now, I want to know quickly, Lucas, how much of the exchange with John Glennon do we have? Like, do we have the question and the comment? All right, I want you to hear this because it made me laugh at the press conference. Because, of course, we haven't talked about how Malik Willis responded to Mentorgate, Ryan Tannehill's stinging comments that it was not his job or that he did not believe it to be his job to mentor the rookie quarterback. And so now, finally, we have an opportunity to speak with Malik Willis on Friday. And he was asked by, journalist extraordinaire, John Glennon of Sports Illustrated, about Ryan Tannehill's comments. And here was that full exchange.
What was made, Malik, about Ryan's comment about not mentoring earlier?
What comment?
What's that?
What comment?
Ryan Tannehill, okay.
Man.
What did you take anything from that, or anything of significance, or what are your thoughts?
Oh man, we chopped it up. I mean, it was never anything negative. Ryan's a good dude, and he had us, like I said, he had us over the house. Everything's cool, man.
He said, I love Johnny, like stuttering through his question and having to repeat it because he thought Malik Willis legitimately didn't know about the thing that had been carrying SportsCenter and NFL Network and CBS Sports and NBC Sports and 104.5 The Zone and every A to Z Sports everywhere had been talking about what Ryan Tannehill had to say about not wanting to mentor or not thinking it's his job to mentor Malik Willis. It's just all stupid. It's all stupid. That entire conversation, it makes me... I feel like I lost IQ points carrying on with it as long as we did. And we weren't even, I'm not saying anything about the other 3 shows. I don't know how far it went with 3HL or Blaine and Mickey or J. Martin Ramon. I don't know necessarily what conversations they had around it or how much or how little they talked about it. But for our part, I felt that we were doing ourselves and you a disservice by talking about it for as long as we did. What Trent Dilfer articulated yesterday, I thought was the best analysis of this situation that I had heard. And what Trent obviously has experience, not just being an NFL quarterback, not just working under and working above quarterbacks who have come in to replace him or quarterbacks that he was supposed to replace, but he literally spends his time mentoring almost any young quarterback of note who comes through his Elite 11 program. Legitimate mentorship. So when I asked Trent Dilfer about this yesterday, because he's on the radio show yesterday, and he gave us an analogy that I thought was just spot the hell on, and hopefully it can put this whole thing to rest. This was Trent Dilfer with us on the show Monday.
Yeah, Buck, people are bored this time of year, let's be honest. Like, any soundbite in any situation throughout the NFL college football landscape is going to become clickbait.
Yeah.
I would just say this. I know Ryan Tannehill. He's one of the finer human beings in the NFL. You can think one way or another about the playoff game or what he is as a quarterback. I think that's fair for anybody to have their opinions. But Ryan's an incredible human. Malik Willis is an incredible human. They're going to be just fine. And I think in any quarterback room, you understand, like, it's a big job. I don't know if this is a great comparison, but if you're a CEO running a Fortune 500 company, you don't have a whole lot of time to have a fellow in your office that you're trying to mentor to become the next CEO. You're making shareholder decisions every single day that impact lives, and you don't necessarily have time to sit down, kick your feet up, and go, hey, here's what I've done the last 3 hours. Why don't you take notes, and I'm going to teach you how to do this one day. That's kind of close to what it is in the NFL, being an NFL quarterback. It's a huge, huge job, and it takes everything in your being to be good at it. Now, in the course of that, there's relationships that are built, and I truly believe that Ryan and Malik are going to have a great relationship. And within the midst of that relationship, as Ryan's trying to be a better NFL starting quarterback, if Malik takes the effort to learn from that and to be a sponge, he's going to learn a lot in that process. It doesn't mean Ryan has to be focused on, hey, I'm going to make sure I carve time out of my day and maybe sacrifice how good I could be at this position in this job to help this guy. It's like, no, I'm going to attack this with my full vigor. I'm going to invest my entire life into this. I'm making sacrifices to be great at this, and it's on him to watch and learn and ask questions and ask the why behind it. I think Malik would say the same thing. I actually think it's a really healthy relationship that's going on there with the Titans in the quarterback room, and one I only think is going to get better.
So that was Trent Dilfer yesterday, the full conversation about Elite 11, about Nico Iamaleava, and more a discussion about Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis, available to you wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search The Buck Reising Show in your favorite podcast app. So, if the professional athletes, both current and former, are telling you that it's a non-story, in fact, telling you that it's a healthy dynamic between starter and backup, starter and rookie, veteran and rookie, if the head coach, Mike Vrabel, who on Friday basically said the exact same thing, said that, he thought Ryan handled it genuinely, handled it honestly, handled it truthfully, and that he had zero issues with what Ryan Tannehill had to say. Why is this something that people continue to want to bring to the forefront as a story? We were talking about this at practice on either Friday or Saturday, I want to say, amongst ourselves, and I was asked the question, what do you define as a mentor? And to be honest, I kind of stumbled over my words a little bit because I hadn't necessarily thought of what it is that defines mentor. Basically, somebody who's tasked and who embraces the role of walking another individual through every step of what their role is supposed to be, teaching them in real time, all but holding their hand, right? Just to kind of, in fact, do we have an Urban Dictionary? We haven't done an Urban Dictionary reading in a while. You want to do one? Do you think that mentor is on the Urban Dictionary? I think that we should do that, Lucas. If
worth a shot.
Pull that up, because Urban Dictionary, of course, is the resource that we all should be using in these trying times.
Yes, it is.
But when I looked, when we were having the conversation, basically the way that it was put in front of me is mentor does not mean, or lack of mentorship does not mean bad teammate. And good teammate does not necessarily include mentor. These things can be separated, one from the other, and they can be done by degrees, rather than everybody latching on to the few words that came out of Ryan Tannehill's mouth, ignoring what came before it and what came after it, ignoring what Malik Willis said because that's not sexy, ignoring all the different things that would tell you that this really isn't an issue in an NFL locker room, other than the fact that you want to make it an issue because, what? You want something to talk about? I'm the one who needs something to talk about, and I'm telling you it's a non-damn story. I don't know how many times I have to reiterate that. And yet I continue to see it in my mentions, continue to see people asking questions about it, continue to see that these cries of anger at Ryan Tannehill and of the Titans coaching staff for not punishing Ryan Tannehill in some way, shape, or form for expressing the idea that it's not necessarily in his job description to mentor a rookie quarterback. In fact, let's hear the description of what a mentor is from Urban Dictionary. Is it clean? Are you prepared?
Yes, the definition of mentors on Urban Dictionary is a pornographic metal band that sounds like Black Sabbath meets Hustler magazine that formed in the late 70s, originally fronted by a bald, bearded gut vocalist / drummer guy known as El Duce, who later got ran over by a train and killed back in April 1997.
What?
Was that the context you were looking for?
My jaw is dropped. I don't know what just happened there. Are there multiple definitions, or is that the only one that exists on the Urban Dictionary?
This one appears to be more apt. Mentor, one who influences learning minds.
Excellent.
Second time's the charm.
Thank you for your efficiency. Brandon Rushing on YouTube says, how about use an actual dictionary? Man, shut up. Let us have some fun.
It's no fun.
Actual dictionary? No.
Get out of here, Merriam-Webster.
Tomahawk says, I'm going to listen to Mentor now. Yeah, R.I.P. What was the name? El Duce?
El Duce, or I guess D-U-S, or D-U-C-E. So El Duce.
El Deuce?
I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, throw one on for El Deuce and go listen to some Mentor. Perhaps we'll come back. I don't know. We don't know what the lyrics look like. Perhaps we'll come back from the commercial break with some. So let that be the end of Mentor Gate. Let that be the final word. Let us never mention it again until the next time that somebody calls in yelling at us that Ryan Tannehill threw 3 incompletions in a row and that Malik Willis needs to be starting. And how dare that quarterback not mentor the rookie?
El Duce. It's an Italian Latin word for leader. I should have known this.
Shame on you. A disgrace to your heritage. 615-737-1045. Can we talk about something of actual substance? And by the way, you're welcome to weigh in on this. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to chime in. There's a couple of other things of substance that I want to get to regarding different players, not named Malik Willis or Treylon Burks. Not that those guys are irrelevant. One is very, very relevant to the success or the failure of the Tennessee Titans in 2022. But looking at how the defensive side of the ball is going to work, what are you laughing about that back there? What happened? Don't wave me off. What happened?
I guess I got to bring this to light. A caller just called in and told Robert that El Duce, conspiracy theorists allegedly believe had something to do with the death of Kurt Cobain. But that's a rabbit hole we do not need to go down.
Why were you trying to keep this information from me? Also, Robert's laughter off mic is the kind of aesthetic that I need in the background for when my jokes fall flat and you just look at me or try and shake me off that way.
Well, we were having a productive conversation about Titans rookies, so I don't know. Do you want to go into the rabbit hole about conspiracy theorists surrounding Kurt Cobain's death?
What if I did? We'll never know because you were so dismissive of it on the front end. Wave me off when I'm asking you. I'm on the air, hanging out to dry. I'm asking you to help me do a bit, and you just silently shake your head vigorously at me and leave me there. It's not helpful.
We'll carve out a block for the show tomorrow to talk about this conspiracy theory.
Put it at 10:20.
Yeah, bookmark it.
Okay. Anyway, productive football conversations. Let's have one about Roger McCreary, shall we? So the second-round corner, looking at a secondary that is pretty crowded at this point, not just with the additions that have been made, including Theo Jackson and the aforementioned second-round corner from Auburn, but with Caleb Farley, TBD, with Christian Fulton securing a starting spot on the outside and Elijah Molden as their primary slot option last year, Amani Hooker and Kevin Byard on the back end. All, by the way, but Kevin Byard on a rookie contract, which I think is of the utmost importance given the fact that the wide receiver market is going nuts and you now have cost-effective solutions at the position most often tasked with stopping these high-paid wide receivers. So it's fair to expect the corner market to inflate as well. We'll see what happens with Amani Hooker this offseason, but in the meantime, there is a football season to be played. Now, Roger McCreary, I guess my biggest question is where does he fit, right? Because in today's NFL, we know that you can get multiple defensive backs on the field. We know that, especially on third down, you see a lot of what's called dime and nickel packages, or rather nickel and dime packages. 5 defensive backs on the field in nickel, 6 defensive backs on the field in dime. This is something that the Titans and many other NFL teams employ, particularly on third down, as we discussed yesterday. And so my question for Greg Cosell of NFL Films, when we did our draft pick deep dive on that, is where is Roger most likely to fit in? How does he crack the lineup? Does he crack the lineup? If not, what are they doing with a second-round pick at corner that can't crack the lineup? And this is what Greg Cosell had to say about where he sees Roger McCreary competing this fall.
Yeah, and he was obviously a first-round pick and would have been a higher first-round pick if not for the injuries. I think in an ideal world, and only the coaching staff could answer this, that they would like Fulton and Farley to be the outside corners.
Yeah.
Farley certainly has outstanding length for the position. He's a really fluid athlete. For a man that size, he's a little twitchy. I thought he was a really good prospect based on tape study.
Yeah.
If he's healthy, I think they have 2 solid outside corners. I thought Fulton had a nice year last year. I thought he played well. Thought he improved significantly from his rookie season.
Yeah.
I would think that if Farley is truly ready to go, I would think that McCreary and Molden, and I don't know about Buster Screen's situation, but I would think that McCreary and Molden would battle for the slot corner spot, because there's no question in my mind that McCreary could play inside in the slot.
So that's a pretty interesting situation, right? Because I think most Titans fans felt pretty good about the Elijah Molden experience last year. Now, we talked with Coach Mack about this if you guys were listening to the show on Friday, or if you catch Coach Mack's segment on Fridays via podcast, however you consume it. That was a question that I had for Mack. Is that the most likely place, the most likely position, spot that we see Roger McCreary compete at in the slot? And it seems, based on not just their physical build, but where they are comfortable playing, what they have as players in their toolbox, for lack of a better term, you have Roger McCreary, who may present an upgrade over a guy who was a third-round pick last year. Now, I'm not saying that makes Elijah Molden less relevant. Obviously, depth at the corner position is something that many, many teams would be happy to have, because Jael, for example, on YouTube suggests that Molden is the slot, put the rookie at dime corner. And maybe that's what ends up happening, right? Because Elijah Molden knows the slot corner spot in this defense. And it may take Roger McCreary some time to get comfortable with what he's being asked to do, given that he did play in a couple of different spots for Auburn, but was primarily an outside corner. Does that sound familiar? It's exactly the same thing that they did with Christian Fulton in his rookie year. Primarily an outside corner at LSU for the first part of his rookie season. He got injured. He was away for a couple of weeks, and then when he came back, he was, because of injuries and a lack of Adoree Jackson, they moved him back to the outside, and he was a much, much better player for it. It's a good problem to have. A good problem to have more defensive backs than you may necessarily know what to do with. And Tomahawk does bring up a good point. Danny Amendola absolutely torched Elijah Molden. The corpse of Danny Amendola. Was that the Rams game? Was he a Ram? Where was Danny Amendola
he was
playing
in Houston last year?
Oh, my God, that's right. In Week 18. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in on this conversation, by the way, if you have thoughts, questions, comments, and concerns. And for Greg Cosell's part, what he started that answer with was basically, he was asking me, what's the deal with Caleb Farley? And the deal with Caleb Farley, I don't know. We will know more once OTAs get underway next week. I assume that he will be on the practice field in some form or fashion. It's my understanding that his recovery from the ACL is going to plan, and that there has been nothing that would be considered a legitimate setback that would keep him from the field in the early goings. But again, I don't have the answer to that at this point. The best answer that anybody has given us on Caleb Farley in the last couple of months was Mike Vrabel at the Combine when he said, yeah, he's got all the potential in the world, but nobody wants to talk about potential. And Mike's right. Nobody wants to talk about potential. I want to understand where this first-round pick at corner is going to fit in and how soon he can contribute. And if he can't contribute soon, what an explanation is necessary. Because there's a lot riding on the performance of this secondary. It's been a unit that's been very, very good under John Robinson since he rebuilt it. But looking at the circumstance and understanding that your pass rush had as good a year as humanly possible, and, we'll see one way or the other if they're able to repeat or even elevate themselves. Makes life a lot easier on the secondary. But you go from a veteran of, 10-plus seasons in the NFL and Jackrabbit, who, whatever your issues with him last year, he understands the nuances of playing corner and the nuances of NFL route running by receivers, gives you a better chance than not. Caleb Farley is being thrust into a different situation and is going to have to learn, basically, in trial by fire. Alex is in Nashville up first. Hello, Alex.
Hey, so this is a great conversation, great debate, a luxury, to be able to have this conversation and be picky about your slot corner and all the options, maybe too many corners. What NFL team are we talking about? The Titans? We ain't got a luxury to talk about our slot corner. Who the heck's playing on the outside?
Hey.
You got Christian Fulton is a budding star when he's healthy, never played a full season. Caleb Farley hadn't played a full season of football in 3 years. Both have all the potential in the world, but potential will get you beat. Before we get into all these debates of getting greedy with extra and picky slot corners, let's lock down the outside first.
It's a good point, right? And what I asked Greg Cosell to this effect. In fact, I'll let you hear what Greg Cosell had to say about how these corners will be deployed coming up next. Welcome back here on 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. So we figured out a place for me to tailgate for the Nashville SC game. We'll get into that a little bit later. But in the meantime, we were talking about Roger McCreary and his fit in this Titans secondary, crowded secondary. Now, I believe it was Alex earlier who brought up the point, let's figure out who the outside corners are before we start debating who makes the most sense in the slot. And while Roger McCreary does possess the ability, in fact, has the most experience through 3 years of playing in the SEC against top-level competition, as an outside corner, that may not necessarily be the fit that makes the most sense. Should injuries come into play at some point in the season, it is good to know that Roger McCreary can play the outside. In fact, it is good to know that he is comfortable playing the outside. Probably more comfortable than he's initially going to be in the slot. But, then there's the question of, okay, are there ways that you can get all of these guys or most of these guys onto the field in some form or fashion in the various defensive alignments that the Titans play, particularly on third down in a league that likes to throw the ball a lot? So I asked Greg Cosell this question last Wednesday on the install, and this is what Greg had to say.
I mean, assuming that they do a lot of the same things they did a year ago, and it's the same, obviously same D coordinator and Shane Bowen, with Mike Vrabel being the head coach.
Only thing that changed this offseason was a couple of assistants and a special teams coach. That was about it.
So when they played both nickel with 5 defensive backs and they played dime with 6 defensive backs, they pretty much played dime on third down almost all the time, unless it was third and short. And a year ago, they would play Dane Cruikshank, who's obviously not there anymore. He would be the dime safety a year ago. And very often they used him as a man-to-man matchup on tight ends. I don't know who they see as that player right now, but I could see Molden being that dime player. He's probably not as big as you would like in terms of height to be a true tight end matchup, but I think he's a real smart, savvy, aware player. And I think he can do a lot of things.
That's Greg Cosell on last week's episode of The Install. We're in the middle of doing draft pick deep dives, so check out that podcast every Wednesday in your favorite podcast app. Tomorrow, we're doing Nicholas Petit-Frere and Malik Willis as the 2 third-round selections for the Tennessee Titans, and we'll continue to work our way through this 9-man draft class with Greg. But it's a good point to see the different ways that the Titans deploy their corners, their safeties anyway, and something that we talked about yesterday with Theo Jackson being physically capable of taking on the Dane Cruikshank role. Now, whether they use Theo Jackson in that role, I have no idea. That's entirely the coaching staff's prerogative. But basically, you're looking for the pieces and parts to help you recreate and potentially even exceed what you were able to do so well last year. And last year, they had matchups all over the field on defense, which is not easy to do. So just something to keep in mind as we kind of await what this will look like in a more full form. And as we wait for developments on Caleb Farley, did you guys have Caleb Farley on Blaine and Mickey last year, did you say?
No. Caleb I remember him being on 3HL very quickly after he was drafted. But no, Blaine and Mickey, no.
We only talked to him a couple of times. I wonder if he's a good interview or not. Trying to think of who I would like to request from the lovely people at Titans PR to speak to. I'd wonder if they would even make Caleb Farley available, because a lot of Titans fans want to hear from that guy. Anyway, we'll find out that later next week. I think, though, that there is a story in sports right now that we have not spent near enough time on. We have not talked nearly enough about what the hell Patrick Beverley is doing across. He was on Get Up Again today. He was on First Take when I walked in the studio. He was on Get Up yesterday, just out here slandering the name of Chris Paul. Now, I know that a lot of the audience isn't necessarily in tune with the NBA drama, but it is laugh out loud funny, and I think it will bring about a funny conversation to kind of delve into this. So if you're unaware, Patrick Beverley, NBA player, not currently in the playoffs after getting eliminated with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Shout out the Memphis Grizzlies. But he has some just incredible grudge. I don't know. Do you know the origins of this hatred for Chris Paul? Anyway, Chris Paul and the Suns get embarrassed by the Dallas Mavericks in Game 7. Chris Paul is the greatest point guard in the history of the sport who's never won anything. He is called the point god and has 0 rings to show for it. And, of course, that's how we do the measurements of any player or coach. Rings. And so Pat Beverley decides he wants to do some commentary on ESPN. So Pat Beverley wakes up at 4:45 in the morning to do 6 a.m. Eastern Time television. Pat Beverley is on a mission. Pat Beverley packed an overnight bag, went to ESPN and said, I'm going to stay here a while, and I'm going to take down Chris Paul day by day on national television, and I'm going to have a time doing it. Can I hear the kind of things that Pat Beverley was saying about Chris Paul yesterday on First Take? Because it brought about a funny conversation that I think is going to be able to carry some weight with our audience.
Ain't nobody worried about Chris Paul when he play Phoenix Suns. Nobody in the NBA.
Well, what did I just say, though?
And I'm just letting you know how NBA players feel and think.
I believe you, but what I'm saying
He's finessed the game to a point where he gets all the petty calls, all the swipe throughs at the end. I mean, this guy is out, man. We gonna be honest? We want to be really honest?
Yes.
He should have fouled out. He should have fouled out. The last game, too. You see the replay against Brunson, hit him on the shoulder, hit him in the mouth, ref don't call anything. If that's me, review it. Flagrant 1. If that's him, they don't call it. So let's not get it twisted, man. He should have fouled out. He can't guard. He literally can't guard.
He can't guard.
Yeah.
He can't. Chris Paul can't guard anybody? Is that what you say?
Did you see that? No, he can't. Everyone knows that.
Excuse me. No. I don't know that. I haven't heard anybody tell me that.
Because you haven't suited up. You know, guys don't like to tell you all the truth. You know that. Because they scared what you going to take with it.
No, he's right about that. They will lie.
I don't care.
He's honest. They will lie. That is true. He's not lying about that.
CP can't guard nobody, man. Everybody in the NBA know that. Everybody know that.
He can't guard anybody.
What we call them? Cone. You know what you do with cones? Like when in the summertime, you got a cone. You make a move. What does the cone do?
Stay still.
Exactly. Yeah. He's a cone. Stop playing, man. Everybody knows that. Everyone knows that. It's just y'all don't want to accept it because.
No, I don't accept that. No. I'm saying again, if you're taller than him, you say you can shoot over him. Obviously, that's an issue.
But give him the Ben Simmons slander. Give him the PG-13 slander. Give him the slander that you give everybody. Come on, Steve.
Pat Bev is out here demanding that Stephen A., the dragon, that Ben Simmons awoke when he went scorched earth on Ben Simmons for basically, not having the mental toughness to play and suing the league basically for $20 million in recoupment after not playing an NBA season. Pat Beverley is saying, no, give Chris Paul that same slander because the league does not respect him, when in reality it seems to just be Pat Beverley that doesn't respect Chris Paul.
It sounds so personal.
Well, it clearly is based on the video that you sent me.
Of him, the two-handed shove in the back of Chris Paul.
I remember when this happened. I remember this happening. I don't remember the circumstance that it happened under, but Pat Beverley is in a Clippers uniform here, just walking up behind Chris Paul and two-hand shoving him in the back.
They did overlap for 1 year in L.A. playing for the Clippers together.
Okay, because that was my question.
Yeah, but I just can't get over him saying, give him the slander. Give him the Ben Simmons slander.
It's tremendous. So, we would like to pose you this question, 615-737-1045. And to be honest, we stole it, but at least I'm going to be honest about stealing it. The question that I would like to ask you is this. What athlete would you wake up at 4:45 a.m. to slander on national television? It's something that we stole from Spencer Hall at Channel 6. It is a hilarious question. We're going to give you our answer to that and take some of yours coming up next.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Titans have officially signed their first-round draft pick. Field Yates reported this morning. Wide receiver Treylon Burks inked his 4-year deal worth over $14 million, fully guaranteed, and of course, with a 5th-year option. Tennessee basketball grabbed another commitment today from 6'8" power forward Tobe Awaka out of New York. Awaka unranked on the 247 Sports Composite. Tennessee about a week removed from securing a commit from 5-star small forward Julian Phillips. Major League Baseball, the Braves dropped the first of a 3-game set against the Brewers on Tuesday in a shutout, 1-0. They will go again tonight at 6:40. And conference finals tip off tonight in the NBA. Getting started in the East, it is Game 1 between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics from Miami, a 7:30 tip-off. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, made it to the final hour. Welcome in, welcome back. If you've been hanging out with us so far to 104.5 The Zone. Now, we had an early arrival. Look at this. Now, let's make sure his microphone's on, Lucas, or do we want to give him the rookie initiation? Even though this is not a rookie, this is somebody who has been a part of Nashville sports fans live for quite some time. It is Cory Curtis of WKRN News 2. Let's see if he can survive the rookie hazing that we typically bring in new guests for.
The red light is on.
Ah, damn it.
It was actually...
Oh!
Yeah. It switched off.
Lucas.
And then it went right back on.
Look at you.
You know what happened to me at the Combine? I was talking to a sports guy from Cincinnati, and he's like, "Hey, you're Cory Curtis." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, you're the dean there." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, I'm old."
The dean.
That means I'm old, because when I got here, Hope was the dean.
Yeah, Hope Hines.
Yeah, and I'm like, does that mean I'm Hope?
Are you the longest tenured of the sports?
Yeah.
Are you really?
Oh yeah.
By how much? Because JB, I was just talking to John Burton at Channel 5. He just come up on 10 years. How long you been in town?
19.
Whoa! Look at you.
Yeah, 2003.
My God.
Buck is 19.
Who the hell are you talking to? The two of you combined back there are 19. Actually, I think
Buck went home and cut up some black felt and taped it to his face to look older.
Do you know somebody accused me of using Just for Men the other day?
Oh.
This is brutal. I just have a really good barber, so my beard line looks really good against my fade. Just for Men.
I get that all the time. I'm 51.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got some of the nicest hair in Nashville sports media, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I don't say this to brag, but just because I get hit with it all the time. This is my natural hair color. I'm very fortunate. Both my father and my mother hair aged very gracefully, and I got it from both sides.
Excellent.
And so I'm Bob Barker, Dick Clark-esque.
And it's saying, well, especially if you've been on the air here locally for damn near 20 years.
Yeah, I just jinxed it. I'll be fired by the end of the day.
615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. We were not expecting Cory for about 15 more minutes, but since he's here, we thought we'd put him to work.
COVID got me in.
Yeah? What the hell?
I mean, COVID has alleviated traffic for the most part. So
it's like, did you just bring a disease into the studio?
There's no traffic.
I got disoriented. Well, I mean, it's the middle of the day. How many people are driving around?
Dude, before COVID, it didn't matter what time it was. Yeah. Traffic was terrible.
The only traffic that I hit at any point in my day.
You live 4 blocks from the station. You could ride your stupid bird scooter over here.
Now listen to me. I have not taken a bird scooter since this may have been my last WKRN News 2 appearance. The last time I took a bird scooter.
The draft special?
The draft special.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys smartened up. You haven't put me on television since. Good on you.
Have we?
I don't think so. But that's not what I'm here to complain about.
We can complain about something else.
It's for the best. It's for the best. I don't belong on television. I think one of the first things I, had zero belonging in a.
We were the first ones
studio.
to put you on television.
Yes.
Let's just make it clear before you try and bury me here.
No, I'm not burying you at all. I'm just saying.
Back when you were a little baby Buck working at another station, getting 3 seconds of airtime a day, we said, Buck, you work hard. Why don't you come and join us and talk? And you showed up in cowboy boots and a red velour jumpsuit, and it was amazing.
That's right, with our guy Joe Leadingham. What a time to be alive that was. But we were just talking about, because we're going to get into some Derrick Henry stuff. There's an article on Football Outsiders detailing the demise of Derrick Henry, which is something that we have not yet discussed so far on the radio show. But we were, before you walked in here, we were talking about the athlete across your lifetime of consuming sports. And you're a Bears fan, so I know there are a few.
Yep.
The athlete across sports who you would want to wake up at 4:45 in the morning and go on national television to slander the way that Pat Beverley did to Chris Paul on SportsCenter the past 2 days, because this man has come out with a vengeance against Chris Paul. Lucas, can we play the audio again for Cory Curtis in the event that he has not heard Pat Beverley on the warpath? Let's go ahead and do this courtesy of ESPN.
Ain't nobody worried about Chris Paul when he play Phoenix Suns. Nobody in the NBA.
Well, what did I just say, though?
And I'm just letting you know how NBA players feel and think.
I believe you, but what I'm saying
He's finessed the game to a point where he gets all the petty calls, all the swipe throughs at the end. I mean, this guy is out, man. We gonna be honest? We want to be really honest?
Yes.
He should have fouled out. He should have fouled out. The last game, too. You see the replay against Brunson, hit him on the shoulder, hit him in the mouth, ref don't call anything. If that's me, review it. Flagrant one. If that's him, they don't call it. So let's not get it twisted, man. He should have fouled out. He can't guard. He literally can't guard.
He can't guard.
Yeah.
He can't. Chris Paul can't guard anybody? Is that what you say?
Did you see that? No, he can't. Everyone knows that.
Excuse me. No. I don't know that. I haven't heard anybody tell me
Okay, we
that.
don't need the full exchange, but basically, Pat Beverley went on the warpath on ESPN. So across your years as a sports fan, what athlete that when his name, when his face, when his jersey number comes to your mind, you want to get in front of a microphone and tear him down or her limb from limb?
You know what? It's very interesting that this question comes up, because I had one of the big highlights of my life happened the other night. I had Jim McMahon retweet me.
Oh, congratulations. He follows me on Twitter, oddly enough.
Jim McMahon. So back in 1986, the year after the Bears won the Super Bowl, so my two most hated teams in life are the Green Bay Packers and St. Louis Cardinals.
Understandably.
Like, if their team buses collided at 90 miles an hour, I'm okay. All right?
Okay.
But I mean, I'm just saying that that's the level of hatred I have for those two organizations, and it's totally personal.
Yeah.
It's totally personal. But do you know who Charles Martin is?
I do.
Charles Martin, when the Bears played the Packers that next year, and the Bears are rolling. I mean, they just won the Super Bowl, and they are rolling again. He comes out with a hit list on his towel, all the people he wants to hurt. And Forrest Gregg was the head coach back then. And play is over. He comes up from behind Jim Mann, picks him up, body slams him, and basically ends McMahon's career.
It's a very, very famous clip. Now, just for the audience, because, I mean, most people will understand the Charles Martin reference, but he's a defensive lineman for the Packers. Yeah. During that era of NFC, was it even the NFC North?
No, it was NFC Central days.
NFC Central football. So,
or as Chris Berman called it, the Norris. But yeah, I mean, it was one of the dirtiest plays ever. He, in my opinion, should never have been allowed to play in the NFL again. He was suspended for a year, but he should never have been allowed to play again. And that incident, I would call it a crime because it was an assault.
Sure.
Cost the Bears multiple Super Bowl championships, in my estimation. Because I'm sorry, T-Zack and Fuller don't equal McMahon. Harbaugh covering kicks out of Michigan does not equal what McMahon was. McMahon was electric, and he was a leader, and he was on offense the straw that stirs the drink. Most people don't realize how awesome that 85 Bears team was, because everybody remembers the defense, and they remember Walter Payton, of course. That was the highest scoring offense in the National Football League.
Oh, no, Coach Mack regularly reminds us of that because he was a part of those coaching staffs.
Now the defense had something to do with it, but people don't understand how good that offensive line was. I mean, Jimbo Covert is a Hall of Famer, and Jay Hilgenberg at center. And you had Mark Bortz, and then you had Keith Van Horn, another first-round pick out of Southern Cal at right tackle, and then Tom Thayer was their other guard. And, I mean, those guys competed every day in practice with the filthiest defensive line we may have ever seen, along with the Steel Curtain and some of these other groups. And they were able to compete. That team was so good. And you can tell me, well, Corey, they should have been able to overcome one guy. Well, if you know anything about the history of the Chicago Bears, quarterback
tough scene
has been a tough go. It has been a tough go, which is why they are painting Justin Fields out to be the next Johnny Unitas right now.
Oh, they didn't help him at all this offseason. That's honestly...
They're tanking. Dude, okay, listen. And we're getting off on another subject.
Cory Curtis, WKRN News 2 in studio, by the way.
So, listen, I want him to be good, but when I watch what Pace, the new GM, is doing, this is what it says to me. They got $150 million in cap space next year. They're going to tank this year, pick in the top 8 again, load up with some more players in the first and second round because you're picking 2 of the top 40 then. And then you've got $150 million to spend as well. I think, and also you get Aaron Rodgers another year older. And I'm not sure about that Packer team outside of Rodgers.
The YouTube chat, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch were live streaming on Zone TV, where, of course, you could see Cory Curtis and his voluptuous hairdo. They thought that you were going to nominate Aaron Rodgers as a well-known Bears fan.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan.
Sure.
I respect his ability. He's a weird dude, without question, and he's just handed it to us over and over again. But he's done it fairly. I mean, and I'm talking about one of the dirtiest plays I've ever seen. So
sure.
That's a really long answer for Charles Martin.
No, but it's a good one. And like, I'm going to bring this back to a local tie, and I'm going to tell people, and this is about as good a sports talk radio tease as I could do, I'm going to tell you why the player who I would get in front of a microphone and openly slander at any given point is Marcus Mariota coming up next.
Oh, wow.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Welcome back. Cory Curtis in studio, WKRN News 2. That's where you go. So I tease, we've been talking about, what professional athlete, well, I guess it doesn't have to be a pro athlete, but what athlete would you slander with the vigor that Pat Beverley is slandering Chris Paul at any given point? And I said Marcus Mariota is the person for me.
I don't understand this at all. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, it's not about Marcus personally, because in fact, I think I have an odd attachment, I would say, to Marcus, because his rookie year was my first year in Nashville.
Okay.
He was the first quarterback with the Titans that I ever covered. So he's the quarterback which sounds ridiculous to Titans fans, but he's the quarterback who I most associate with Titans football, just because of the nature of me coming here when I did. And I was the last person to talk to him after he got benched. Were you in Denver?
No.
Oh, God. I was in Denver. And there was nobody else who wanted to talk to Marcus Mariota. The locker room had cleaned out, and it was just me and Marcus in the locker room at the end. I was just like, hey, man, you okay? And we had like how hard it was to talk to him. And we had like a weirdly transparent conversation. But here's why Marcus is that person, that athlete for me. Because I could not stand to watch him play, Corey.
Oh.
I could not stand.
You mean at the end or at the beginning?
Really? Not at the beginning, because the beginning, and really, I guess that would have been what? He was drafted, rookie was 2015.
Look, his second year.
Electric.
Yeah.
Absolutely electric.
Okay.
And that was my first year covering them. That was DeMarco Murray.
You weren't there for his rookie year.
I was here,
when
but
Ken Wisenhunt tried to get him killed.
No, I was here, but I was not physically covering the team. That was at the time, as you mentioned, that they had me.
Year two, he looked like he was on the cusp of stardom.
And I think,
which makes this all so difficult.
And I think that's why I harbor that kind of resentment.
I can understand that.
That was my first year, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy has everything.
Yeah, year 3, I had huge expectations.
You are telling me. So you mentioned that I was at a different spot when we first came into contact with one another, and that I was barely seeing the.
He means talking, because this sounded like wildly inappropriate.
Well, depends where you catch us.
No, it doesn't.
But they literally weren't letting me see the light of day at my first stop. So when I had the opportunity to go to Titans practice and I was covering these things, I had such high expectations for him. And through one reason or another, it didn't pan out. And it got to the point, Corey, where I resented them as a team, because I could not understand why it continued to look like 12-9 overtime, no touchdowns on the road against the winless Cleveland Browns that season.
Yeah, that was ugly.
And so his performance on the field is something that I will get in front of a microphone and I will tear down until the end of time, because of the way that it frustrated me. Because I had a dream job. I was 22 years old. I was covering an NFL team. I had no business being there. They should have never credentialed me. And yet there I was, and I hated the football team that I was covering because I could not stand to watch that quarterback play.
There was a stretch. I think it was Malarkey's first year.
Yep.
Because remember when they just destroyed the Packers? I mean, just killed them.
Here in Nashville. Yeah. It was crazy.
There was a 9-game stretch in that season where they averaged I can't remember. I remember I did the numbers on it a long time, but they averaged over 30 points a game.
Yeah, they were rolling. I mean, DeMarco Murray was the leading rusher in the AFC that year. They were great.
But you still look at what they were putting on the field back then compared to these days. It was pretty good. That was pretty good. I mean, there was a time where Mariota was unquestionably the most talented athlete they had on offense, which was part of the problem. Like the guy, and I understand the disappointment, because I had going into year 3, my expectations for Marcus were off the charts. He got hurt too many times. He had too many changes. His confidence took a hit. I think there is no question about that. And in that last year here, he got hurt. Nobody talked about it. Nobody knew about it, because that's the way the team does things now. And so it's a detriment to him that he went out and played hurt to start that season. And I compare him that year very much to Baker Mayfield last year.
That's a good comparison.
Because they had the same injury. Neither one of them could throw the ball with a lot of strength. inaccuracy because they just weren't. They were healthy enough to play, but they weren't healthy enough to play at a high level.
Yeah,
and it cost them both. And I still think Marcus has huge ability, and I'm sure as you really like him. I like a lot of the things he can do.
Sure,
but I think Atlanta's a great spot for him with Desmond Ridder behind him, because as much as I would love to see Marcus play 17 games, I would not count on it.
Who plays more games in 2022, Marcus Mariota or A.J. Brown? That's a dirty question.
Yeah, I would say, oh gosh, I would say A.J. because he's got something to prove.
Yeah.
But, man, I really worry about him with those Philly fans.
Buddy, I was watching the Doc Rivers press conference after they got bounced by the Heat. Howard Eskin just on Doc's neck. And I'm sitting there thinking,
look, there's a responsibility that comes with that money.
Oh, hell yeah.
And they don't care if you've struggled with depression or not. Ask Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
They do not care.
Oh, Ben Simmons, Markelle
Fultz. They booed Mike Schmidt, one of the greatest third basemen who ever lived. They will boo A.J. Brown, and they will crucify him on social media.
Oh, and he refuses to log off at this point.
If he doesn't produce. Now, if he produces in a huge way and he is spectacular, he is going to be good to go. But this town will give you a mulligan.
Yeah.
There's no mulligans in Philly.
Did you? I can't remember who the Phillies outfielder was that he had committed 3 errors in a row, and the Philly fans were like at his neck. So there was an inning he had come back in, and he had not committed an error on this, and so the Philly fans are like chopping it up for him, like, "Hey, look at you, bud! Great job out there. Got through an inning without an error." And the camera catches him just looking down at his teammates, going, "I effing hate this place." That's Philadelphia sports.
Yeah.
Now you bring up availability, and you bring up, playing healthy enough to play, but not enough to produce at a high level.
Yeah, there's a difference.
That difference, I think, was evident in front of us in January watching Derrick Henry in his first game back.
I think what we saw from Derrick is what we see in early season Derrick. He takes a little bit of time to get cranked up.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't play in the preseason.
Right.
And I didn't have huge expectations for him in that game. I kind of expected what we saw.
I think people had
unreasonable.
Yes, because well, sure, because and to a degree, there were reasonable expectations about the sum of the parts, right? Mm-hmm. Because all the additional rest that they got down the stretch, all the injuries that they had.
He had been practicing for like 3 weeks, right?
He had been practicing in some form or fashion for about 3 weeks. They had the first round bye, like everything was lining up. Cosmos.
Even Julio Jones was playing.
Right, and Julio, by the way, looked good in week 18. Like, you're like, oh my God.
Not that you're going to want to throw him the ball with the game on the line. That's Nick Westbrook-Akina's job.
AJ was open too. Tough scene.
Doesn't matter.
But
just like against Baltimore.
But, oh God.
Khalif Raymond.
Yeah, that's still a thing. Well, Khalif also fell forward into the defensive back, but that's a conversation for a different day. So that now there's this article from Football Outsiders last week that I did not address on the radio show. But it says, it's titled, Derrick Henry is Toast.
Yeah.
The Decline and Fall of Derrick Henry by Mike Tanier of Football Outsiders. And it goes into his 2 years since having the 378 carries, 2,027 yards. Titans go to the playoffs, and doing all of the spectacular things that Derrick Henry has done in a Titans uniform. And basically what Football Outsiders metrics are projecting is that is the greatest version of Derrick Henry that we will see.
I don't think that's unreasonable to say. It's a 2,000-yard season. We've only seen 8 of them.
Right.
So now he was on pace to duplicate it, but it was harder. It was harder. And we see this over and over again. It's why running backs don't last, because there's just only so much. The Walter Paytons, the Emmitt Smiths, the Kermit Davises, or Kermit Davis.
Great basketball coach.
Kermit from the Jets and the Patriots.
Kermit from the Jets and the Patriots.
The guy who went to Pitt. Who am I thinking of? The running back.
Oh, this is the generational thing, okay. I think.
He played forever. But, these guys who are able to play over 10 years at that position at a really high level, there's just Not a ton of them. That's when people, and look, do I think Derrick can go over 1,000 yards this year? Heck yeah.
Kermit Johnson.
No.
Is that right?
No.
I just looked it up on Pro Football
Look,
Reference.
I've already butchered this.
Oh, he's born in 1952.
Yeah,
no,
that's
way too
definitely
old.
not him. But, people, when Derrick was going for 2,000 yards, he is the greatest running back of all time. And I'm like, guys, slow your roll.
Yeah.
Slow your roll. He's got to do it for more than 1 or 2 years. All right? You got to do it for an extended period of time. And I'm not saying he can't, but let's let him do it. Because when Chris Johnson came into the league, I had never seen that before. Like at that position, I had Robbie Bourne came through, Curtis Martin. There we go.
Curtis Martin.
My favorite Martin.
Shout out to Robbie Bourne.
Thank you for saving
Always
me.
there for us.
But when Chris Johnson came through, I had never seen that before. And, he was so fast that guys couldn't hit the right pursuit angle. Everybody pursued him wrong. He just outran everybody. And you thought there was never going to be any stopping him. Well, the moment he lost a quarter of a step, the greatness was gone. He was still good.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the lightning bolt that he was. It lasted, 3 years?
He had like a half a good season with Arizona at the end.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
But he was a
good,
shell of himself.
But he wasn't the guy who went 90 at the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And so, for Derrick, I have pounded this home for years. What makes him truly special is not the stiff arm. It's not the 6'4", 245 pounds. It's taking an 8-yard run and making it 80.
Yeah.
It's that instant straight line acceleration and going, and he's a game breaker. He's a huge freaking game breaker, but he's a game breaker.
The size is special because he pulls away from the people who are smaller and are supposed to be faster than him.
I mean, his number of 40-yard runs compared to the rest of the league. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now his size has something to do with that because he's able to shake off a tackle here and there and go. But largely he finds a seam and boom, he gone.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the 99-yarder. That one was. He got the seam and then he threw 17 guys aside.
And also the Jags, not to take anything away from Derrick, but the Jags gave up.
Yeah.
The Jags gave up at that point.
But most of them, he's just a lightning bolt and gone. So we'll see, coming back from the foot injury, where's that speed? Is that speed there? Because if he loses a quarter of a step, that 80-yard run could be now a 36-yard run.
I felt that I was watching him lose that quarter of a step or a fifth of a step or whatever, however you want to do the fractions. I thought I was watching that last year because he was breaking less tackles and he was getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage at a greater rate than he was. Now they were also leaning on him as heavily as they ever have.
Yeah.
I mean, 29 touches per game.
The Todd Downing offense loved it some Derrick Henry, especially on first down.
So, and we've asked Vrabel about this multiple times, right? They don't necessarily look at minutes restrictions or snap counts for Derrick because Derrick is what Derrick is, and he's most effective as a volume runner. And we had no better example of how a special volume runner ages than last year on the very same roster. Adrian Peterson. That's a volume runner. The thing that made Adrian Peterson great outside of the incredible athleticism and the game-breaking ability, much in the same way that we talk about Derrick, also another very slow by the time. And also AP or AD rather. AD is what? I think he's 36 at this point in his career. So it is different. Derrick will be 29 in the middle of this football season. So we're starting to see it because I don't know, is it a fair assessment to describe Derrick Henry as overused?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't. Because that's the use. That's the use of Derrick Henry is to overuse him.
Yeah, because you want to wear people down.
Right.
But you go back to that playoff game, and you had Deontay Foreman, who had played well for you leading up. I mean, not just okay, he looked good.
Yeah.
And, look, I understand Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. I'm not an idiot. And I'm not saying, well, the Titans lost that game because they force-fed Derrick Henry. No.
Nobody's dumb enough to think that. And if you are, do something about it.
But Foreman had shown he can make plays for you.
Right.
And he was a weapon. And I think if they'll probably tell me I'm wrong, but I think if the Titans had to do it over again, he probably would have gotten 5, 6, or 7 more touches in that football game. And again, Derrick Henry didn't throw 3 interceptions. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, there was more pressure on the quarterback to play in that game because they didn't run the football as well. But you saw when Foreman got in there, he had more explosiveness.
Right.
I mean, because he had, like an 8-yard run and then like a 40 or 50-yard run.
I could pull up the box score of that game to tell you specifically. But he had a game-breaking run to get them to inside the 20, and then Tannehill threw the pick.
Yeah, but I mean, and he had an 8-yard run before that.
Yeah.
So I mean, in his limited work, he showed more explosiveness. And when you saw that, I think it was time to, if you want to give Derrick every 2 out of 3, I have no problem with that. But he needed to get in the game and get some touches because he was I'm not saying he's faster than Derrick Henry because I know the Derrick Henry crowd loves to crucify me because he's...
Oh, buddy. Who loves to crucify you? I was the one arguing for him not to get a second contract like an asshat.
Well, look, when I point out he was on the trade block, people think it was the Titans' fault.
It wasn't that long ago.
But Foreman was at that point quicker, faster, more explosive than Derrick Henry was. That's not saying that he is in general, but just at that point of Derrick coming back and where they were in the season, Foreman was rolling.
Yeah.
And Derrick was just trying to get back.
Yeah.
And, the thing...
Now, I understood why they did it, because if you had the Derrick Henry bullet to fire, that was the opportunity to fire.
But you also could have played the long game and saying, we're getting Derrick cranked up. And you know what? Next week for the AFC championship game, he'll get a little bit more. And for the Super Bowl, he'll be ready for that full onslaught.
Yeah.
There's a couple ways to think about it. I don't think there's a wrong one. I don't think they're wrong because I think if you don't throw 3 interceptions, we're talking about what he did in the AFC championship game instead.
So Cory Curtis, WKRN News 2 is where you can find him, of course, with Kayla Anderson and Emily Proud. They do an exceptional job. The News 2 crew.
The best sports show on News 2, without question.
I would not dispute that anywhere. I don't think anybody would. Now, Lucas has texted me and said Derrick Henry has had the most carries by running back since 2018.
There you go.
1,115. Zeke is 2 with 1,086.
And that's missing half a season.
That's correct. That's missing. So what? He went down in week 9 last year. So he missed 12 total weeks, 11 weeks of football. That's insane.
And he still has the most.
So, because somebody in the YouTube comments, Danny, brings up Henry's usage has been so irresponsible.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to... I can't dismiss that because of the numbers that we've just laid out. Missing half a season and still being first in carry since 2018 by a wide margin. Irresponsible, though, would indicate that it's not the best thing that they've had at their disposal every year that he's been, well, not every year that he's been on the roster, but since 2018. He's the best thing that they've had on the roster. To describe that as irresponsible, I think is recency bias.
Yeah, and look, you want to get the ball in your best player's hands.
Sure.
And so you want to get to him a lot. The thing you also have to look at this is from a contract situation. When they signed him to that 4-year deal, they knew it was likely 3 years, right? And he's not going to get another one after that.
This is coming up on the 3rd, by the way.
Because you're not going to take a chance on a 30-year-old running back at that point making an 8-figure income.
Yeah.
And so what do they think? We got him for 3 more years. We are going to run him like heck for 3 more years. Realistically, do you think it's coincidence that they drafted a running back last year in the 4th round?
None. Are you talking about this year?
Yeah, this last year.
Yeah, Hassan Haskins.
Yeah.
No, not especially not when you watched that guy, by the way.
And not a 3rd down back who, you thought Darrington Evans was going to be a guy who you can line up in the slot and run on 3rd downs. He was not any kind of heir apparent at that position. This guy is an heir apparent.
He can play
at the position. It's just that simple. And you're going to have him on a rookie deal starting next, for the next 3 years after this one. And so he's going to have that opportunity. We'll see. I'm not saying the Titans are cutting Derrick Henry after this year. I think we all have to be prepared for it.
I've been prepared for hell. Especially once I saw the way that they structured that contract.
Every contract, you have to look at it that way.
Sure.
You have to. What's the escape year? That's to me, that's more important than the guaranteed money. When can you get out of it?
And that's been my whole contention this entire offseason, Corey, is that this is their last year, Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry together, and I don't think that necessarily guarantees that Tannehill's the odd one out.
Well, you know what?
Because I think that quarterback is way easier to salvage than the running back.
Well, it's tougher to replace.
Yeah.
It's tougher to replace. And look, there's only one Derrick Henry. Like I said, I'm not a fool. But as we found out last year, it was easier to replace Derrick Henry and what he did than it was to replace A.J. Brown and what he did.
Oh, God. Well, we're going to find that out again this year, too, aren't we?
No, we are, but you've got more guys to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm excited about with this offense is last year's passing game was so A.J. dependent.
Yes.
So A.J., because you couldn't count on Julio. You had no weapon at tight end. I mean, none. Okay? And Derrick was only there for 9, so he was never a fantastic receiver. So it was AJ or bust. And now you've got Robert Woods, Treylon Burks. And look, if Treylon Burks could just do 50 yards a game, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then you've also got Austin Hooper, who has been a prolific producer in the past, and you hope you can get some of the back. I think that they will carve out some stuff for Chig Okonkwo.
And Kyle Phillips.
And Kyle Phillips looks unbelievable. I'll tell you, when we got to watch the film of Kyle Phillips, I was...
Yeah.
I mean, the whole room was. I mean, I'm like, that guy's a football player. But, I mean, Okonkwo, he's a guy who I think you have to design 2 or 3 plays for a game.
Yeah.
Because he's a bad matchup. He's fast. He's strong.
Which is something they have so lacked at a position that is critical for the quarterback's comfort level. You want to stick around and do some polls?
Absolutely. But so I'm excited about what they can do.
Okay. Polls next.
Yep.
Okay. Welcome back. Cory Curtis, WKRN News 2 in a house. Love to see it. You got anything you want to plug?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Watch our show.
Watch their show.
Watch our show.
News channel.
Sports Extra every Sunday night at 10:30 till 11. We are your home for Titans preseason football once again.
You doing sidelines?
You know what? They haven't told me I'm not.
Okay.
My price is right.
Excellent.
I get paid the same for that I do for this.
That's all right.
You know what?
I'll buy you a coffee.
I used to do play-by-play for a long time,
Right.
and that was one of the biggest thrills of my career, and I'm forever thankful for that chance. And being a part of those broadcasts, whether it's the preseason or not, it's a good time because you get a lot of behind-the-scenes looks at stuff.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about the team, and you get to be standing on the sideline to watch the game and see how people interact and stuff. And
it's the most honest moment you're ever going to get because that, even preseason being what it is, it's still as close to the heat of it as you would get in a normal NFL game. Now, are you familiar with the poll situation around here other than what they produce on Twitter?
No.
All right, Lucas, do it.
Hello, everyone listening to the Buck Reising Show. This is Benjamin Kenobi, better known as Obi-Wan. I have but one thing to say. Lucas, use the Force. Use the Force, Lucas, to help interpret what the hell Chewie is saying. Oh, scrap that rubbish.
Lucas, I am not your father. I repeat, I am not your father, nor am I Buck's father.
I was once a Jedi Knight, and what I'm trying to say is, Lucas, it's time to update the final poll results here on the Buck Reising Show. Do it now.
Cast a Star Wars to the club quickly, Lucas.
Presented by Two
Yeah, I know.
Rivers Ford. Custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They
Not
will
you and
deliver
McGregor.
it to you when it gets manufactured. That was Chewy, though. That was not Red.
That was a real Chewy. Whoa! We got one in the studio.
Have a Chewy off.
No, let's not.
Who are the winners of the weekend? Puka says Luka. Elijah says Jason Tatum.
Luka, absolutely,
Luka.
for dummying the Phoenix Suns in a big spot. Also, Jack Nicklaus for not taking the Saudis' money in the way that Phil Mickelson was tripping over himself to do.
Who are the losers of the weekend? Puka chimes in again. The Suns with the most embarrassing Game 7 in NBA history.
You have anybody who embarrassed themselves in sports this week?
Well, the Suns and then also the Milwaukee Bucks didn't do too well either. Those were two awful games.
Great hockey games in Game 7.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible basketball in Game 7.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Farsender says all the people that were slandering Burks for having one bad day during rookie minicamp are the losers of the weekend.
As somebody who takes it regularly on social media about their weight, I am here to defend Traylon Burks. Until the end of time, he had one bad day. Move on.
Are you concerned about a potential decline with Derrick Henry this season? 59% are not.
Corey?
Well, look, there's a difference between decline and falling off a cliff. I mean, and so I think am I concerned that he's not going to be the same guy? No. I don't expect him to be, but I expect him to be pretty darn good.
Do the Titans still need to pursue veteran wide receiver help in free agency?
Hell yes.
89% say that.
Oh, we'll talk about it tomorrow. We didn't have time to get to it today. But yeah, Jarvis Landry off the board for 1 year, $6 million. You could have afforded that.
Will Fuller.
Yeah, Will Fuller. Well,
he's a Houston Texan.
It's a very, very much Mike Vrabel thing to do. But
he's living in Vrabel's basement right now. We just don't know it.
Right next to his son on the toilet in the draft room.
What athlete would you wake up at 4:45 a.m. to slander on national television with a hat tip to Spencer Hall for coming up with that question? Yeah. Puka says Floyd Mayweather. Chad says A.J. Brown.
Well, there's a lot of sentiment locally for A.J. Brown. Marcus Mariota, not the person, the player.
Brock says Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis. That's an interesting duo.
Now, but Beverly Davenport, of course, disagrees. Oh. Is it frozen?
It doesn't work in this segment. Sorry, buddy.
I love Peyton Manning.
I would have to go with...
I love Peyton Manning.
Hey, Bev.
I would have to go with Butch Jones. I'm not putting out an athlete. I'm putting out a coach.
No.
Butch Jones is who I would like to wake up at 4:45 a.m.
All
to
he
slander.
did was take a terrible team and win 9 games back-to-back for you.
It's true.
The most disingenuous human to ever step in front
Sean
of a
Tuttle
podium.
slipped on that helmet. What are you talking about?
Who could sell more used cars, Bruce Pearl or Butch Jones?
Oh, Bruce. Bruce for sure.
Yeah, because Bruce would find more nefarious ways to get the car sold.
Bruce would bring you to
rules.
Bruce would bring you to a cookout and then give you the car.
Those are the polls.
Okay, that's the show. He's Cory Curtis, WKRN News 2. Check him out, buddy. It was fun.
Hey, I appreciate it. I had a good time.
You know who else is going to have a good time? It's Blaine and Mickey. They're coming up next.